I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, what do you do when you're dating a woman and her kids are being disrespectful in front of you to her? How do you handle it? Especially if you just started dating the gal. Well, I've actually got an email here from a guy who's been dating. Apparently, it looks like he's done a pretty good job of applying what I teach in my book. And he's been dating this woman for about a month. And he's done, obviously, a pretty good job of creating attraction and making her feel safe and comfortable. Because after a month, he's already interacting with her and her two little kids. I think he said they were 3 and 7. And apparently there's an ex-husband in the picture, and he's a very weak and needy guy. And he suspects that the ex-husband is actually being a bad influence on the children and causing them to misbehave, because things are good between this particular guy and his ex-wife, and the kids also seem to like him. So he says, Corey, you are certainly the best in what you do. I've been reading all you've been writing for the past several months, and it has changed me a lot for the better. I bought your book, but I will also make a more generous contribution via PayPal. I love donations. And as far as me being the best in the world, I mean, yeah, I'm the best. I believe that there's absolutely nobody else on the planet that knows the things that I know and understands the things that I understand and can explain them in the way that I can explain them. And it's not because I'm better than you or anybody else. I simply apply better success principles on a more consistent basis than most people do. And everything that I've done, you should never be in awe of it. I mean, if you just follow what I teach, you can get the same results. And so you can accomplish things even crazier and more outrageous and outlandish than me. It's just a leader leads by example. And I've spent my whole life focusing on peak performance and being at my best personally and understanding human relationships, how people interact with one another, as well as the psychology of success and peak performance. What are the emotional triggers that cause one person to succeed and accomplish truly amazing things when it seems like all the odds are stacked against them, whereas you got somebody else who seems to have the silver spoon bar in their mouth and they have everything going for them, but yet they never reach their full potential? It's like, what's the difference between that? You know, in the late 1990s, I spent several years tutoring and mentoring at-risk kids. These were kids that were like 6 years old to say 12 years old, all elementary school kids that came from like really fucked up, dysfunctional backgrounds. And plus, over the years, I've dated a lot of women that have had kids, and so I've helped these women I've dated over the years raise their kids, their nieces, their nephews, and obviously having an extensive background in tutoring and mentoring at-risk kids, and then obviously incorporating that with everything I know about relationships. Because at the end of the day, people are people, even kids. Kids are really simply little people. And Dr. Wayne Dyer has a quote that I love, and he says, kids come through you, but they don't come for you. And when you're looking at children and how to interact with them, the psychology of understanding that human beings will do more to avoid pain than they will do to gain pleasure can help you, especially when you're talking to a small child and trying to use logic and reason. Because when you beat children into submission, all you end up doing is teaching them to be devious and to lie to you. And then when they get to the point where they need you the most, which is their teenage years, you're not going to have a relationship with them because they got used to getting the crap beat out of them when they were a kid. And so they just won't tell you what's going on. And the next thing you know, your 16-year-old son or daughter goes and drives drunk and gets themselves killed and several of their friends, and you're shocked that this happens because I didn't even know that they drank. Well, if you had a good relationship with your children, a loving relationship where you shared your wisdom and your life experience, and you shared it in a way to where you can help them anchor negative things and negative emotions with making a bad choice, and positive things with making a good choice. I mean, because at the end of the day, what you really want to do is you want to teach kids to do the right thing when you're not around. If you beat your kids up and you're always constantly punishing them, eventually they're just going to hide who they really are and what they're really doing from you. And you're never going to really know your children, even though you may think you do. You'll have a superficial relationship with them. And then things will happen and you'll be shocked. You'll be like, I can't believe that they did this. Well, when you beat a kid and you're abusive, like my own father was to me, I mean, he used to beat the shit out of me when I was a little child, fling me across the room, bounce me off the walls. And then he would always tell me that, well, you know, I made a promise to myself that I would never bounce my kids off the walls like my father did to me. And I'm thinking, like, after he just beat the shit out of me and threw me up against the wall, and he's telling me this, it's like, you know, how can you not see what you're doing is exactly the way your father did? And so what happens is I didn't tell my dad what was going on. I didn't have a relationship with him. I didn't have a relationship with my mother. They had no idea who I was. They had who I was at home, and then who I was when I was not around them was something completely different. And if you raise your kids that way, you're never going to have an honest, authentic relationship with them. And so he says, I started to make the right choices, and suddenly, you know what happened? I got all the girls that I want, and now I'm seeing a woman for about a month, and she brought me into her life as she became more confident. I would say she brought you into her life because you made her feel safe and comfortable by properly dating and courting her and letting her come to you at her own pace, because obviously that's why you've gotten to know the kids so soon. He says, I like her a lot, and our relationship has been intense and fantastic. The problem is she has 2 kids who are 7 and 3 and an ex-husband, their dad, that is a perfect example of a needy, weak man. She left him a year and a half ago for this only reason after 6 years of marriage. She's 36 and I'm 32. She works in Avon and the needy guy works next door. I'm a medical doctor, a rheumatologist. The relationship between them has been as expected with a weak, needy, rejected man. He kept chasing her and crying outside her door. Real embarrassing situation. See, there's another example why chasing women and begging them to come back to you if you've been dumped is never fucking works. It says, for the last 4 months, this man was more controlled after an episode that she lost control and told him to get lost. Now the man is a little crazy because he knows about me through his sons. I have a good relationship with the kids. They like me. Recently, I noticed that the bigger one, who is 7, has been acting weird. He's being disrespectful with his mother in front of me to cause trouble. It's clearly his dad's hand, and I don't know how to react sometimes. It's hard to tolerate disrespectfulness with a mouth shut, and I want to keep the best relationship with them because I really like their mom, and she's also into me. Here's the best way to handle that situation. I mean, next time the kid does this, her son I guess it is, does this, just sit him down and say, come over here. I say, let me talk to you, basically. And I want you to understand something. It's that men, real men, respect women. And I would really appreciate it if, especially when I'm around, if you are respectful and sweet and kind and loving to your mother. Not only your mother, but all women in general. Because here's the reason why. If you keep treating your mother that way, then you're going to learn a pattern of being very disrespectful and very rude to women. And as you grow up and you become older, you're not going to have very many women as friends because they're all going to think you're a jerk. And not only that, when you get older, you're not going to have very many guy friends either. Why? Well, the reason being is that your guy friends are not going to want to bring their girlfriends or their wives around you when you're a jerk to all women. And so you're going to be a very lonely, sad guy when you grow up. Is that what you want? And of course he's going to say, well, no. And say, well, I would really appreciate it if you would apologize to your mother for being rude and disrespectful. And also, in public, I want you to be well-behaved and kind and nice around us. Because at heart, even though I'm an adult, inside I'm still a little kid, and I like to play and I like to have fun. And so tell you what, I'm going to make a deal with you. If you can make a commitment to me that for the next 30 days you're going to be perfect, you're going to be respectful, you're going to do what your mother asks, and you're going to be nice to not only her but all other adults and respectful, then we're going to have a day that's going to be all about you, meaning we're going to go wherever you want. Obviously, if there's a theme park nearby, you want to do something like that, or just I'm sure there's things to do in your area that he'd really love to go and do. Maybe it's, like I said, going to a theme park or something, or an amusement park, or take him shopping somewhere, or reward him in some way by taking him someplace that he'd like to go. And I'll give you an example. Like one of my former girlfriends, one of her daughters, I used to have this thing called AAA Day. It was called All About Ainsley Day. And basically, it was about once a month or so, back when I was dating her mother, and even for many years after we stopped dating, because I formed a real good bond with her, and I loved her like my own little girl, even though biologically she wasn't mine. And even to this day, if she called me out of the blue and needed something, I'd be there in a fucking heartbeat for her. I love her to death. And so this AAA Day was like, obviously when she was well behaved, it would be me and her. I would take her for the day, and this was in Orlando, so there were a lot, theme parks that we'd go. I'd pick her up and I'd say, well, where are we going today? She'd go, let's start out at Universal, or let's start out at Disney World. And so we'd go there and we'd hang out. We'd go wherever she wanted, whatever ride she wanted to do. She could pick the restaurants that we could eat, ice cream, junk food, whatever. If she wanted to go to the mall and do a little shopping, I'd take her out and take her shopping. Not that I would spoil her with tons of money, but I'd buy her something. Keep it under like $100 or something like that. And the whole day was built around making her feel special, and it was a reward for being a good little girl, and also for being sweet and being well behaved over the course of the month. And her mother, I think she spanked her a few times when she was a real little girl, but other than that, she's never punished her, never raised a hand to her, ever. And because she was just a good kid. And so if you explain things, I always just used to, when I was with her, and like if I was giving her advice about boys that she had a crush on or whatever, I would listen to her and come from a place, because by that time she's 12, and like when kids get to be 12, they're already pretty much who they are, and you really can only be a friend. And if you think you can force them or get them to do what you want, then they'll just be devious and you won't have a real relationship with them. But anyways, I made this day all about her, and she always looked forward to it. Even this day, guys that she would date, her mother's married now, that was one of the first things she started telling them, was talking about AAA Day and all these great things that I used to do and places I would take her, and because she really loved that. And it was a reward for good behavior. And so when you're explaining things to your girlfriend's son, you can explain it from the perspective of, here's the good things that will happen when you do the right thing, and here's the negative consequences and painful things that will happen if you do the wrong thing. At the end of the day, you're not going to be around these kids 24/7, and neither is the mother. And so you need to teach them when they're young good logic and reason to use, so when you're not around, that they make good choices. And that's how I would handle it. It's the best way to do it, and you'll have a great relationship with the kids. And so it's like, you reward them when they behave, and when they misbehave, obviously you don't reward them, and you take away the benefits and the good things that will happen. And so it's in their best interest to behave. But if here's the thing to understand about kids that are misbehaving. Usually they misbehave because they need love and affection. And more than likely, he probably learned this dysfunctional behavior from his father. And so just sit him down and talk. It's like, what's wrong? Why are you acting this way? Why are you talking to your mother that way? What's going on? You have to get to the bottom of it and find out, and he'll tell you. And like I said, when kids misbehave and they do things to get themselves in trouble, it's how they go about getting attention from the mother or the father, whoever it is they're looking to get attention from. And so you got to train him and teach him the right way, to just teach him a better way to ask for what he wants, instead of acting like a jackass. Say, if you want this, you want that, or you're hurting, or you're upset about something, come and talk to me like an adult, man to man. It's all you have to do.